There we are. Oh, and I looked up a couple of things for Simon as well. Um, so it's the just recap very quickly. Um, oh, sorry, I'd forgotten to share now. Is the share gone? Share, here we are. Share screen one. Okay, are we properly shared?
Yes.
Okay, good. So just to recap very quickly, Bande Nagasena, Atikochi Sato, is there any being, any sentient being, you imamhataya anyangkayang sangkamatiti? Yeah, welcome, Fanny. So is there any satta, a being, who imamhakaya, ablative, from this body, anyangkayam sangkamati, steps over to another body? Um, Francis, yeah, hi Fanny. Francis, Simon mentioned the Sutta Majjhima 65. Um, can you just remind me the point that you were making, Simon, or remind everyone of the point you were making?
I'm struggling to remember now, but I think it was in that sutta. It's used as a noun, as if
It is, yeah.
something is a bridge. And I got into a dispute with artificial intelligence about it.
Oh, tell us.
Well, I lost. I always do. I get bored. But it that tried to say there was a clear distinction between sankamati and patisandahati, which could be kind of philosophically sustained. I don't think there is, but it was trying to point out that in that sutta, the the monk or the Buddha was asking the monk whether he would act as a bridge rather than come across to him, which is an odd way, almost as if the verb is derived from the noun.
Okay. I did you come to a conclusion?
I mean, I'll go with the reading that we have here, but
Hmm.
I think the trouble is the Patisandahati doesn't appear in the suttas, so it's a scholastic term
Hmm.
meant to explain anatta and rebirth, like so many of these Melinda Panya questions are.
Okay. So the actual, I mean, certainly, yes, you're right. I've checked the Pali Text Society dictionary as well, and it gives sankama in its noun form as a bridge. Um, I'm just going to call up the iPad. I'm by while we're waiting for this to come on. Oh, it's not connecting. Why is that? This is rather odd. It's let me just I'm just going to try and call it up again. We're having a technical problem, it seems. So I've called up the whatever we call air server or something. It's the funny sort of bluish screen you can see. And then it's meant to, and then I press a certain button in the iPad, and then it's meant to link. But it's there's it's not doing it. I do not know why.
There's a very sophisticated way of sorting most problems. You switch it off and you switch it back on again.
Let me just turn the iPad off. Okay, power, slide power off, and I'll turn off the air server. If it still doesn't work, then I shall, if this highly sophisticated method fails, I'll just fall back on the whiteboard. Okay, it's my iPad is just booting up again. I mean, select your plan. What a select a plan. Just ordinary blank document. Let me just have an ordinary blank document. Here we are. Okay, fine. Now, our server is on. I'm putting the correct action there. Ta-da. I'm afraid it's not working again. Why that is happening, I do not know. Okay, looks like whiteboard around.
It doesn't help that that server looks like going down the plug hole.
Well, don't know what's wrong. Later. So we've got our root crumb, and that makes Sanskrit kramati. It's just an ordinary verb meaning to step. And the noun krama is a step, as in the taking of a step. And in Pali, as we'd expect, that becomes kamati. And then it's just got the prefix tankamati, which is the idea of the not just the act of stepping, but the completion of the act of stepping. And often, Were you able to hear me just then? Because I'd forgotten to put my headphones on, so did you hear my voice rather distant and muffled?
No.
That's odd because I'd forgotten to put this thing on, and it was a couple of feet away from me. Okay, fine. So sankamati is a verb meaning to either to take a step, and it sometimes has the meaning of stepping over. And it does make it can be used as a noun. In the Majjhima 65, the Buddha specifically asked this monk if he will be a panke sankamo. That means mud. And a sankamo now as a noun, this is just the nominative form of the noun, means a stepping in the mud. So it therefore means something that he can use to step on to cross the mud. Hello, Krista.
Hi.
Right. Rather like, presaging Sir Walter Raleigh laying down his cloak for Queen Elizabeth the first to allow her to step across a muddy puddle. So the original meaning of it is a verbal noun as the act of stepping, but here it clearly in Majjhima 65, will you be a panke sankamo, a crossing in the mud? In other words, lay yourself down to act as a bridge over the mud. So but the essential meaning of the word is a stepping, and I think it's just by extension then that it's come to mean something that enables you to step.
I think I was trying to work out a way that would fit both these suttas, and if sankama is a bridge, I'm not sure what type of verb you would call that, but you could translate this as is there something that bridges, that you're just taking, or it spans the gap between one life and the next? That would seem to work in both contexts.
I was wondering if that works out, because here, sankamati is the subject of that verb. Of course, this is unambiguously a verb, sankamati, and we've got the subject of that verb is kochisato. The satta is a living being. So is there a living being who, sankamati, from this body to another body?
Yeah, what I mean is, would it not make sense to say, is there a being that bridges from this body to another body? In the sense that rather than it's a stepping across, but there's an intermediate stage, the bridging. And we would say, we will bridge that gap, or the army will bridge a river, or to span a gap. So is there a being that bridges between one life and the next?
I wouldn't say that I'm completely unpersuadable on the subject, but I would say I would take a bit of persuading, because the only case that I've seen it used meaning in the meaning of a bridge or something that you step over is in Majjhima 65. I think we're straining the language to then translate it back, as it were, to mean to act as a bridge, to make a verb out of the word bridge. I think he's asking the traditional question, who gets reborn? That's as I understand it. And then he said, well, there isn't actually any any being that gets reborn, and then we'll see a few lines later. There's the imagery of one candle being lit from another. Nothing is transmigrated. It's just the flame of one candle has caused the other candle to light.
I think to use bridge as an active verb would fit that meaning in the sense, is there anything that bridges one life and the next? Is it like an attan or soul that actually bridges, that for a moment is like poised
Yeah.
the two states?
Okay, well, I will ponder this a bit more. I mean, if you can find any more evidence for this entertaining notion, we can. I'll certainly happy to look at it. My first inclination is just to treat it as a normal verb. I mean, we see it used dozens and dozens of times, just where there's no question of bridging. It's somebody just walking along, stepping up to, and in many of the suttas open, with that the Buddha was staying in a certain place and such a person came to see him, and the person, Bhagavan Tamubadam Upasankamati, steps up to him.
I'm struck by the fact that it's always kind of yena tena, so that where the Buddha is,
Yeah,
he steps as if that way he bridges, as if he's filling in the gap between where he was and the Blessed One is.
you're getting very, very ingenious there, Simon. Let me ponder it further in my mind, and I'll call up some further instances, and they. You have atikamati as well, meaning to step over. In the description, for example, in the description of the jhanas, you get the same verb is used when you move from one jhana to the other.
Atikamati would be different because the sang means a completed action. So like having bridged, whereas atikamati is just the action transcending or stepping over, stepping.
That's right. It is overstepping. We will consider this entertaining question further. So yes, let's come back to it. I'll see what more I can find. The other question you were asking about hedonic, weren't you?
What? Is that me?
Was it you asking about hedonic?
Word, I think. Yeah. I can't remember what it was. Carry on. Yeah.
I can't. I've just got a note. The paper here. Where did I put it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Make a note. Oddly enough, it's actually quite interesting because.
James, could you put
Yes.
yourself on screen and then we can see the chart better? I stop sharing.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Having said that, let me just test once more to see whether test once more to see whether it's working. No, it's not. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Of course, I'll unshare then. Stop share. Okay, is the sharing stopped now? Okay, good. In fact, it was quite interesting. So the discussion about hedonic. It's so it's hidos in Greek, and it's an entertaining word. It's in Vedic Sanskrit and Vedic, the root to eat is ad. It's that same root that turns up in edere in Latin and com edere, which you get the Spanish comer, so edere in ad. It's the same word that comes into English as eat. And it makes a verbal noun, ada. And with the prefix su, it makes swada. Now, you sometimes find that a word that begins with an S in Sanskrit changes to a H in Greek. So the swada turns up in Greek as hidos, meaning sweet. But the original meaning, suada, good to eat. So this, it's from the Greek word, which the original meaning was just sweet, nice to eat. That then, by extension, was applied to in modern times. It's applied to sense pleasure generally. Entertainingly, this suada, the ada eating, it turns up in English as sweet. So the eat, something that's good to eat. That's the only case I know where we have this swa or su that has actually been retained in English in the same meaning that it had in Pali and Sanskrit. So anyway, there we are. Su, ada, good to eat, English sweet, and Greek hedos. I'm glad you raised that entertaining word. I hadn't actually known of this connection before from the Greek hedos. So I'll just share screen again. Lost it. Here we are. So Nagasena is asking, is there another being? Is there any being which sankamati, let's leave the exact meaning of that word open, but I provisionally want to have is just steps across, transmigrates. It's the common old question. Do you have a kind of soul that you die and your soul hangs about and then is plonked into another body? There's the popular conception of it, and I think that's what Melinda is getting at here. So he says, Nahi Maharaja, no, great king. So if Yedi Bhante Nagasena, Imam Hakaya Anyankayang Sankamanto Nati, there is no Sankamanta, one who Sankamati, if there is no Sankamanto, Nanu Mutu Bhavissati. Would it then follow the nanu is like expression expecting the answer yes? Is it not the case then that nanu mutu bhavissati, he will be liberated papakehi kamehi from evil deeds, meaning from the effect of evil deeds? And then Ama Maharaja, Ama is like, well, it's one way of saying yes. Ama Maharaja. Yadi, hang on, if we had a Pati Sandahati. No, we haven't yet. Ama Maharaja, Yadi Napati Sandahaya, if he does not Patisandahati, okay, and we'll explore that word. Muttu bhavissati papakehi kamehi. Muttu bhavissati, he will be liberated. Papakehi kamehi, from evil deeds. So yadi na patisandahiya, if he is not put back together again, doesn't come together again. But yasmachako, but because Maharaja Pratisandahati, he does come together again. Tasma, therefore, naparimutto papakehi kamehi. He is not liberated from evil deeds. There's some pari here. Query whether it actually adds anything to mutto. It's a mutta, Sanskrit mukta, means liberated from the root much, which has the idea of releasing something, as in releasing a bird from the hand. I don't actually think it I don't think it makes a semantic difference. It may be the pari in the sense of just completely or emphatic. Sometimes pari has its full semantic meaning of around, as in parimana, a measure. And if something is aparimana, it is unmeasured, therefore mean without measure, but boundless. And that's the same as the Greek prefix peri, or Greek preposition and prefix peri. Sanskrit pari just meaning around. So sometimes it has its full original semantic meaning of around, and sometimes it's just used as a kind of intensive. Here I would say it's just an intensive, the idea being a final and complete liberation. So, and Patisandahati, it's from the same origin as the as Sandhi. In Greek, synte, in modern Greek, in modern English, we talk about synthesis. So from the Greek, the synthesis, putting together, which is directly cognate with the Sanskrit sandhi, putting together. And we have that, of course, in grammatical sandhis, the putting together, the coming together of two sounds can alter one or both. The prefix pati here, I think, has the force of back or again. So to be put back together, comes back together. The idea being that there was a satta being that has dissolved, possibly dissolved into its different elements, and pati sandahati is put together again. And it's a word that has come to mean just being reborn. So the underlying meaning is like a thing that was dissolved, fallen apart, is reassembled. That appears to be the underlying imagery behind the word. Did you mention, Simon, that you had done some further reading on that one?
Yeah, I mean, that was the AI issue, that doesn't make any more sense than Sankamati in explaining what gets reborn.
No.
That's a philosophical rather than a grammatical problem.
Yeah, it is indeed. So
it means to set up, doesn't it? To put in place, and
yeah,
to put together with something.
yeah. So I would interpret the sandahati is directly cognate with synthesize, to put together, and the pati tends to mean, well, in this context it clearly does mean back or again, so not just put together. So to put back together. Something was originally together and has fallen apart. And we have things like labha, meaning getting, and pratilabha, meaning like getting back, either getting back something that you had before, or achieving something by way of recompense, either for good or evil deeds. The pratilabha is what you get back for it. So yasmachako, to share again. Oops. Yasmachako, but because, remember this cha sometimes means but rather than and. You just have to detect from context which it means. But because, O great king, it or he or she or whatever just does come back together again, patisandahati, tasma, therefore, naparimutto, that being, an entity, naparimutto, is not liberated. Papakehi kamehi. There's some yasma and tasma. Yasma is the relative pronoun from which, or in fact, in our English word, wherefore, exactly reflects the yasma. So yasma, tasma, wherefore, therefore. Wherefore, in modern English, we'd say because. So wherefore, Maharaja, it does come together. Therefore, he is not liberated. In modern English, because it does come together again. Therefore, he is not liberated from evil deeds. This sandha to put together, if you insert if you with this verb dha, the root dha, if you put, as well as the verbal prefix sam, if you put a also, you get the word samadhi, sandhi, and samadhi. So the samadhi means kind of gather, samadhi, as it were, gathering in together. Of course, used as the word for, well, concentrations. You know, we'll be just within samatha. We use the word samadhi, of course. So that is kind of the sum together, are towards, and placing in. So the gathering into one place is the imagery that the word conveys. So you go on. Bhante Nagasena. He's getting rather puzzled now, poor Melinda. Just enlarge this a bit. Bhante Nagasena. Nacha sankamati pratisandahaticha. Now here we're seeing a cha and cha, both meaning and, but there's some, it's like he's pointing out an inconsistency. It's as if, do you mean to say that he doesn't sankamati, but that he does pratisandahati? So the cha can be read as a but here. I mean, is it both the case that he does not sankamati and that he does pratisandahati? It could also be read in that way. Are you saying A, nasankamati, and B, pratisandahati? It's like a puzzle question, as if he's pointing out an inconsistency between these two statements. So, Maharaja, yes, indeed, Maharaja, nacha sankamati, pratisandahati cha. So I take this to mean, yes, it is the case that A, he does not sankamati, either step across or act as a bridge, patisandahati cha. And it is also true to say that there is a patisandahati coming together. He is puzzled. Katam, how? Katam hante Nagasena. How, Venerable Nagasena? Nacha sankamati patisandahati cha. How is it the case that he does not sankamati, but that he does patisandahati? Upamang karoti, make a simile. And I've analysed the word there. So upa, cognate with our English up to, close to. Upama is an adjectival form, isn't it? Something that is close. And you can make an abstract noun out of that. Aupamya, a closeness, a likeness, which in Pali is upamma. So upamya is Sanskrit, upamma is Pali. Therefore, upamang karuhi, make a likeness, make a simile. Yatha Maharaja. The yatha is just as. Kuchideva puriso padipato padipam padipeya. Kimmukhoso Maharaja padipo padipamha sankamantoti. So yatha as, just as, great king. Puriso, a person, purusha in Sanskrit, puriso in Pali. Kochideva, it could also be just kochi puriso, but kochideva, any person. That's what it means. So the D here is just a euphonic insertion to avoid the kochi eva, but it also reflects the fact that it's a chiti in Sanskrit. The Simon, please.
Why does it have the eva there? Does that have the extra sense of meaning, even any old bloke, something really straightforward, even anyone?
Yeah, I think it's I tend to think there's an unnecessary overemphasis, almost a slight abuse of the word eva here. I hesitate to put it. I withdraw the word abuse and regret that I've said it. But it does look like an unnecessary overemphasis. But I think you're right. Essentially, it could mean just as anybody. In other words, he's pointing out that it's a well-known phenomenon. We're all, or certainly back in those days, we're all familiar with it at home. You light one candle from another, you light one lamp from another. So he's just pointing out the homely simile of lighting something from the flame of a lamp that's already lit. Normally, this Eva does have some impact, but I'm not sure that it really does have any real impact here. So, padipato, padipam, padipeya. We have the word deep, the root deep, meaning to I dealt with it here. Yeah, to shine or to be bright. And deepa is therefore a lamp, something that shines. Just we'll just stop showing. The root deep. So deepa Remember that there is also the word in Sanskrit, dvipa. We have Deepa and Dvipa. Deepa means a lamp, and Dvipa means an island. They are both Deepa. There can be an ambiguity in Pali. If you see the word Deepa on its own in Pali, it can mean either island or lamp. Normally, it's perfectly obvious from the context. There is, of course, one case where it's not obvious, where the Buddha said, did he say, be islands unto yourselves or lamps unto yourselves? Just looking at the expression on its own, there is a clear ambiguity there, because either would kind of make philosophical sense. Be your own lamp, be your own island. But that's an ambiguity that exists and indeed can be exploited to give it both meanings at the same time in Pali, but in Sanskrit it can't be exploited in that way because they are distinct in Sanskrit. So deepa, lamp. You get there's a modern name. It's quite common among the Sikhs, I think. It's in Punjabi and Hindi is pronounced Kuldeep. It would be Kuladeepa in Sanskrit, literally family light, the light of the family, an auspicious name given to a new baby, bringing as a lamp, a light coming into the family. So here, normally Pradeep, Pradipati in Pali means to blaze forth or to burst into flames. I don't think here the prefix adds much. I think it could equally have been said, you can leave out the pa, purisu dipato dipam dipeya, and would have made complete sense. So the verb dipeya or padipeya is to cause to light, to cause to be lit. The padipam is the object of the verb padipeya, might light a lamp. And this is the old Vedic ablative, padipato, from a lamp, padipam, a lamp, padipeya, he might light. He might light a light from a light. And this is the optative form, because he's not talking about one particular person who is doing that. He's just talking generally, take the idea of a person who lights one lamp from another. This optative form is very frequently used when you're just talking about general similes. You're not talking about an actual person who's doing it. Just say, just as what a person might do, so and so. That's a very common meaning of the optative. And we've got then the kinnu, so which is an interrogative particle, but it's a particle that kind of expects the answer no. So you have nanu.
James, sorry.
Yes.
James, sorry to interrupt. Did you mean to be sharing the screen with the text on it?
I did. Have I failed to do so?
All right, but yes, I think it's helpful when you're pointing.
Okay. Sorry, yes, I'd forgotten that I'd stopped the share. Here we are. We're back to sharing. Yeah, in the previous bit, nano, hang on. I lost it. Where was it? Oh, here we are, yes. Yedi Pantinagasena Imamhakaya Anyankayam Sankamanto Nati, if there is nobody who Sankamati from this body to another, Nanu, that's the interrogative particle expecting the answer yes. You might kind of even more emphasize in, is it not then the case that you're expecting the answer yes? Is it not then the case? Wouldn't he then be liberated from his evil deeds? And down here, we have got kinnu, which is the kind of it's an interrogative particle, but it kind of it expresses the feeling that you're expecting the answer no. I mean, in more emphatic English, we would say, surely you wouldn't be saying that so and so. There's kinnu. So kinnu kruso maharaja padipo padipamha sankamantoti. So, I mean, you surely don't think that one lamp crosses over from the other lamp, Simon.
Yeah, if you have pati, which is to be.
Sorry, your voice came out. You broken there.
If you have dipati, which is to be bright, to shine,
yeah,
you have dipati, dipeti, which is to cause to be bright, to light.
yes, yeah.
What would the optative of the first one be then? If it weren't dipeti, which is dipeya, what would dipati's optative be?
Oh, that would just be dipe, or dipe or dipeti. Either would be equally correct. I think we've got that. If we just looked at that point in the grammar, yeah, if you look at the grammar, bottom of page 34 and top of page 35, it only gives two of the three forms there. The third person singular. If you're looking at the very bottom of page 34, you've got the forms aya and ayati. There's also a shorter form, just on its own. So dipe, dipeya, or dipeyati are all equally correct in Pali. In Sanskrit, it's just ending et. It would be dipiet. It would be lit.
So you'd have to work out which it was from the context, presumably, if it could be dipeya or dipati and dipeti.
So work out which of the two alternatives did you mean?
Whether it would be dipeti or dipati. You would have to work out if they could either be dipeya for the optative.
It would be clear from the fact that if you look here, so deep, in Sanskrit, it's a class 4 verb, so it makes its present stem not deepati but deepyati, or in fact it's an atmanepada, so it becomes deepyate. So it makes its present stem by adding a ya, deepya. And as you'd expect, as would be normal, then what happens is the pya. So I am sharing my screen now, aren't I? Okay, thanks. Just enlarge this a bit. So the dipyate in Sanskrit becomes dipti in Pali. And it would make an optative dipeya with a short e, a double p, dipeya. The class 10, in form class 10 and in meaning most commonly causative, you add the ayati to the root. So it's not dipyati, but dipayati. So in the causative form, it's just dipeti in Pali. There's no doubling of the P. There's nothing in the Sanskrit that causes the P to double.
But the can have an optative of both is what I'm getting at. And this, the one we've got in the book is of dipeti, which is dipeya, which is fair enough. But dipati, the top one, would be the same.
So are you looking at our text?
Yeah, in effect, yeah. Padipeya.
Yeah. Okay. This is a causative.
Yeah.
So this puriso, the person, padipeya is causing to be lit. Causing.
Sorry, that's what I mean by saying we would work out whether it was from dipati or dipeti from the loan, because the optative of the two verbs, the causative and non-causative, would be the same.
No, it wouldn't. The optative of the non-causative, just to be a light, would still have the double P, dipeti, so dipeya.
Oh, okay.
So because the point is that when you've got this the present stem is the one that is used for the present, the imperfect, the imperative, and the optative. Those four tenses are taken from the present stem. So if you see, so the present stem in Sanskrit would be dipyet. It might be a light, dipyet, and that's in Sanskrit would be dipeya or dipe or dipeyati. Those three forms are allowed. When you're making a class 10 verb from that same root, so you get it's frequently used as a the class 10 causative where you add ayati. The fact that the stem adds a ya in the present system is irrelevant. When you're looking at class 10 verbs, you just add ayati to the root, whatever it does as a non-causative verb. So, for example, we've got gachati, that we all know, but the the causative form is in Sanskrit gamayati, and in Pali gameti. So, however behaves in the class 10 verbs are kind of almost like outside the class system. Normally, a verb will be classes 1 to 9, and virtually every verb can make a different form of it with the class 10 adding the ayati ending. But when you treat a verb as a class 10 or make a causative out of it, how it behaves in other forms is irrelevant. So non-causative, optative, Sanskrit dipyet, Pali dipeya, dipeyati, or just dipe. In Sanskrit dipayati, Pali dipeti, optative of dipeti would be dipeya, but with that long E and the single P. So is that clear enough? Okay, good. So Kinnu So Maharaja Padipo. The so here is the just means that. So Padipo, that light, that lamp, does that lamp cross over? Is that lamp a crosser over, a sankamanto padipamha from a lamp? Does that light cross over from another light? Basically, Sankey is giving the rather absurd imagery of one candle, the light of a candle transmigrating to the other one. Oof. Is that clear so far? Nahi, nahi bhanteti. Nahi, not indeed, not so. So in exactly that same way, Maharaja. Nacha sankamati pati sandahati cha. It does not cross over. In other words, I think he really is saying there is not something that, not like a soul that crosses, putting it in its crudest terms, there is no soul that survives the death of the body and transmigrates. But there is something that does reconstitute itself, that does come back together again. Again, precisely what's being meant is a bit of a philosophical issue. Slightly outside. I mean, we can touch on it, of course, as we have to. But exactly how you're meant to interpret this is open to question. But it's this very interesting word, pati sandahati, is something is this being put together again? Is it? But what image would have arisen in the mind of the native speaker at the time? We can only guess. Is it the scattered elements, the scattered energies come together again? But it's not those same original. Okay, we're straying into philosophical ground here. It's not those the things of our present life that are put together again. It's just a series of cause and effect. So I'm still slightly puzzled by what the image would have been in the mind of the native speaker, looking at the word pati sandhati. So if you take a machine apart and put it together again, it remains I mean, linguistically, it's clear enough. But how it would exactly be interpreted, I hesitate to guess. So we've just gone 8. We can have our break, and we can reconvene then at 8:15, if that's all right with everyone. Okay, see you again 8:15. Here we are. So before we move on to do a bit of grammar, were there any further queries arising out of the bit that we've just done? Simon.
Is there any significance in the padipato and what's the other one, padipamha, the two forms of the ablative? Because the first one is in padipato and the second one is amha.
Okay. The normal ablative would be either padipa or padipamha or padipasma, the three kind of fully alternative forms. the padipato is an alternative ablative form. It's a survival from Vedic. And it can have both a literal meaning, from a lamp, and it can have a figurative meaning as well. Here, it's used in its literal meaning. You can just see from context, you're lighting one lamp from another. And therefore, so here the to is used in its literal ablative meaning, as it would be in Vedic. There is also this Vedic ablative ending in to is used with a more figurative meaning in things like I'm not sure if I'm exactly quoting the words right, but essentially it is that, for example, in the Satipatthana Sutta or the Anapanasati Sutta, he just regards the body as body. So kayam kayato and upasati. So in that sense, in that way, the kayato, you couldn't use the ordinary ablative kaya or kayama, because here it has the meaning the body as a body in its capacity as a pure body, as opposed to my body.
Yeah, you get it with anicca, don't you? And he knows aniccato as aniccato.
Exactly so, yes. Yeah. And there's another one, the sara, meaning the essence of something. You know, sarang saratur janati. He knows the essence as essence, meaning he knows what is the essence of something and what are the kind of peripheral, accidental attributes of something.
And it often goes with yatha bhuta, like as it has really come to.
Exactly so, yes, exactly so. So that is the ablative, but used in a kind of adverbial sense. He knows the reality as reality, knows it as it really is. I hadn't particularly focused on this point here, Simon. I would have been slightly more comfortable to see the regular ablative padipamha being used. And I kind of prefer to see the to ablative being used in that figurative, adverbial kind of sense that we've discussed. All we can say is you do see the to ending as here used in a literal ablative sense as well, possibly because this is a later text. I'm not sure whether we see the to ablative ending in the earlier texts. I'd have to check that if it's possible. So, do we have any more before we move on to the grammar? So, so looking at the grammar, we're looking at the present participle here. And as we know, there are, hang on, the 10 class of abbreviations. I'm just trying to find something. I keep saying at some stage I'm going to say very firmly you've got to get these consonantal declension endings right at some stage. Maybe I will. I almost when I look back on this that I wrote some years ago, maybe I was just being a little bit too ponderous and wordy and lawyer-like about it. think I'll try and redo this in simpler terms. If you look at the, sorry, I should be sharing screen now. If you look at Ger and Karunatilaka, second half of page 36, where we're looking at the present participle. In Pali, you can form the present participle in one of two ways. In Sanskrit, there's only one way for forming it, and it's helpful to look at the Sanskrit first. In this table here, it's as usual. I put the Sanskrit in red and the Pali in green. You see that the past participle, those of you who know Latin, it kind of the Latin endings of the present participle reflect what they were in Sanskrit. Do we have any Latinists here? Okay, very good, Finny. Okay.
I have to say, I do find it very helpful with also with the third person plural, with the ANT and ant.
That's right, which is the Latin ant or unt.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
So what happens is, if you let's take the simplest Latin verb that we all start off with, amare, to love. They love is amant, and you can form the present participle stem from the third person plural. Originally in Latin, we know that in fact it's the nominative singular masculine is amans with an ans. In older Latin, it was ants, but the t dropped out, so we get amans. But now look to the accusative, and you get amantem, genitive amantis, dative amanti, ablative amante. You'd go through a somewhat similar exercise in Sanskrit. You look at the third person plural. Let's take this. I've just given the paradigm of a very simple verb, charati, to go. So you look at the third person plural, charanti, they go. And you make the nominative singular by just dropping off the T. So the nominative singular is charan. Now, originally, in a very early form of the language, it was probably charants with an NTS, just as it was in very early Latin. But because Latin doesn't like a word ending, Latin's fine with a word ending in two consonants, but not with three. That's why charants becomes, the amants becomes amants. The T drops out. Sanskrit does not tolerate a word ending in more than one consonant. You can have plenty of consonant clusters within a word, but a word can only end in a consonant, on a vowel, or a single consonant, not a consonant cluster. So we get the Latin equivalent, which just in Sanskrit it becomes charan. For the consonantal declension, that's where the stem ends in a consonant, as here, you add am. Now, here we have the am instead of an s. So here, the T comes back because it's no longer the end of a word, charantam. So charan, charantam. It is a peculiarity of Sanskrit, the present participles, there's a whole class of adjectives in Sanskrit, that you have the nasal in the nominative and the accusative, charan, charantam, but it drops for the instrumental to locative inclusive. That's where you get charata, dative charate, ablative charataha, genitive charataha, and locative charati. Note incidentally that the third person singular of the verb is charati, and the locative singular is charati. So they are identical in form. But it'll always be obvious which one it is. You, all of you know quite a bit of this already. So I'll come to it. In Pali, this final N of the Sanskrit just becomes the Anuswara in Pali. So charang, meaning walking, going. And the accusative, the same as Sanskrit, both charantam, instrumental, the same. In Pali, the dative is essentially dropped out, so the dative is the same as the genitive. Now, ablative and genitive in the Sanskrit ending in the with the sarga, what we call the subdotted h. Almost invariably, a final in Sanskrit becomes o in Pali. And the locative is the same. We won't bother with the plural for the moment. Just look at the singular. This declension is mirrored exactly in the very numerous and common form of adjectives ending in mant or vant. And they are identical with the present participial ending, declension, I should say, with one exception, that's in the nominative singular. Rather than gunavan, it's gunavan, which in Pali becomes gunava. Take the word bhaga, meaning let me just unshare for a moment. Stop share. We take the word bhaga, meaning share. Can you all see the whiteboard all right? Okay, good. Bhaga means originally something like a share, and then by extension it means that the portion of blessedness that you given by just given. And if you are in possession of a great share, then the stem form is bhagavant, often translated as blessed. We have the blessed one. That is the word. Now, what happens is, in the nominative, what happens if it were a verb, it would be bhagavan, the present participle of a verb, but in mant and vant, it's just in the nominative singular, the R is lengthened. So that's bhagavan. But many of you will be aware that even that in modern India, a respected guru is sometimes referred to as Bhagwan. That same word. That's the modern Hindi pronunciation. Be Bhagavan in Sanskrit, Bhagwan, pronounced in modern Hindi. And it's exactly the same word that we use in Pali, meaning the blessed one. This is the nominative singular. The difference between Sanskrit and Pali in the nominative singular is simply that the N drops off in Pali. So Bhagava That accounts for Bhagava as the nominative singular, the blessed one. And the accusative, I'll go back to screen sharing now. The accusative, sorry, start again. Adjectives ending in mant and vant decline exactly the same as the present participle ending in ant, with that one exception that I've just mentioned, namely the nominative singular, which ends in an an in Sanskrit, not an un, and ends in an a in Pali rather than un. The rest of the declension is exactly the same for the present participles and for the adjectives in mant and vant. That's why you have from the present participle charantam, identical in Sanskrit and Pali, and bhagavantam. You know these words from having tried. You have arahang samma sambuddho bhagava, nominative, buddham bhagavantam abhivademi. So you know the bhagavantam, we often chant. So the bhagava, bhagavantam, those of you who chant in Pali have often chanted that. The instrumental, in nouns or in nominals ending in a short a, the instrumental is ena. That's the very common form of instrumental. In the consonantal declension, it's just the long a, which gives us the form charata. Many of you will have chanted Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, well proclaimed by the Blessed One, is the Dhamma. The other most common form is the genitive. And again, I think we've all chanted this many times. It's Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. Well practiced is the Savaka Sangho, the community of disciples, Bhagavato, of the Blessed One. Now, looking at the the present participle here, Pali permits, which Sanskrit does not. Pali permits a regular a stem. In Pali, you are allowed to make, I mentioned it up here. I've dealt with it somewhere. Anyway, if you now look at the bottom of page 36, you'll see it says present participle, form of the present participle. I'm looking at 6.11. Present participle stem is formed by adding nt to the present tense stem of the verb, or another way of looking at it, the one that Fenny mentioned, is you just take the third person plural and you take that as your stem. There are two different ways of arriving at the same point. So gacchati goes, gacchanti they go, present participle stem gacchant. And similarly with labhati, labha stem, they obtain, they get, is the stem form is labhant. That then gives us this table that I'm showing you with shared screen here. Pali also allows a much simpler form. Just take charant and make that into an a ending. So you can have charanto, charantam, charantassa, charantena, and so on, just as if it were any other normal noun or adjective ending in a short a. Pali has both equally, indiscriminately, with no distinction of meaning. It's just two alternative forms allowed in the Pali. So, for example, looking at the ablative here, there's a slight complication there. Let's look at the genitive. So, charata in Sanskrit, charato in Pali, but Pali will also allow charantassa, as if the stem were anta and not ant. I know I've dealt with it somewhere in more detail, but I can't quite find where it is. Oh yes, I did mention it. So in the masculine nominative singular, Sanskrit has exclusively charan. Pali has both charang, closely reflecting the Sanskrit, as well as charanto, declined like any short ad declension nominal, which is not permissible in Sanskrit. In the grammar, if you look down at bottom of page 36, you'll see here that for the nominative singular, the grammar book gives you both forms, the anta form, which make the nominative anto, and also the shorter form, ang. At this point in the grammar, it just doesn't go on to describe the whole of the declension. Look also the example at the top of page 37, where you can have the present participle of gacchati is either gacchang, which reflects the Sanskrit, which would be gachan, or gacchanto, like an ordinary adjective ending in ah. The plural, I'll just look at it briefly before we move on. The nominative plural of these consonantal stems ends in an aha, not aha, which would be the ah stems in Sanskrit end in the nominative plural masculine in a long ah, but if it's a consonantal stem, it's ah, so charantaha. And that aha becomes an o in Pali, so charanto. So if you see the word charanto, that could be either, that's a bit ambiguous. It could be the masculine nominative singular of the short form, of the long form, charanto, or it could be the more Sanskritized form, based on the Sanskrit charantaha. Because Pali allows the alternative declension as if it's a word ending in the stem ends in a short a. That's why you can also get the plural, masculine nominative plural, ending in a, charanta. So that accounts for the Pali, either charanto or charanta. So the charanto reflects the consonantal stem in Sanskrit, whereas the charanta is the masculine plural behaving like any akaranta shabda. Do you all know what I mean by akaranta shabda? Oh, remember a couple of years ago, I remember I dealt with it in detail. It's an akaranta shabda. Maybe we'll just unshare for a moment. Stop share. Useful word to know. The ways of saying the names of the letters in Sanskrit, you just have the letter, the sound, followed by kara, meaning a maker. So akara is literally the A maker, which is the name of the letter A. So whereas the names of our letters in English, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, are kind of all over the place, and as they are in Greek, alpha, beta, delta, gamma, and so on. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. In Sanskrit, you just put the sound followed by kara, maker. So the word for the letter A or A is the akara. A sa is sakara. The name for the letter P is akara, and so on. So if you add anta, anta means end. So if a word is akara anta, which by Sandhi in Sanskrit becomes akaranta, it means a maker ending. In other words, a word ending in the letter a. And shabda just means word. It can mean generally sound as well. So the akaranta shabda becomes akaranta shabda, is the letter a ending word, means a word that ends in whose stem ends in the letter a. Now that has penetrated thoroughly into the consciousness of you all, we can then say that Pali allows the present participle to flip over into the akaranta shabda declension, and so you can have, that's what gives us charanto, charantam, charantena, charanta. And this also accounts for forms like in the genitive plural, for example. The genitive plural of the akaranta shabdas is all, as you know, anam, buddhanam of the Buddhas, naranam of the men. In Sanskrit, that's in Pali, anam. In Pali, the final am is shortened to so buddhanam, naranam. In the consonantal declension, it's not anam, it's just, or anam, it's just am without the an in insert. So charatam means of the goers, of those who walk. And that no Pali word can end in a long vowel followed by anuswara. And so that's why it becomes charatam. So charatam, of those who are going. That accounts for forms like satam, meaning of the good, of those who are good. So it's worth getting to know this because this is very, very frequently encountered. There's the adjectives, often adjectives used as nouns with the vant and mant stems are very, very common indeed, as are the present participles, very common indeed. So the use of the participle, just bearing in mind now that Ger and Karanatilikas, what it's saying is correct, but it's only part of the story. For the full story, you really have to see it in Sanskrit as well. The use of participle, looking near the top of page 37 here. Present participle is as an actor verbal noun, denoting the doer of the action. It's broadly similar to our present participial use in English, and very precisely similar to the present participial use in Latin.
James,
Duncan,
could we have some O-level grammar? I don't know what actor verbal noun. I've no idea what actor verbal noun means.
okay. It is a noun, also an adjective, that indicates the doer of an action. So in fact, the word doer is an active verbal noun. a reader, a voter, all of these things are a traveler. These are active verbal nouns. In other words, they are simply nouns that indicate the person who is doing the action, who is doing the action of the verb. So grammarians, when they talk of an actor, it doesn't mean it's not somebody up on stage or in a film. It just means the doer of an action.
So the two examples that gives which is the actor verbal noun in those two examples?
Oh, one who features, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and
it's
there is no one who transmigrates.
okay. Yes, the actors, the well, it's probably easier to use the present participles because the present participles are exactly the same. They are simply words that indicate the doer of the action. So we've got the action sankamati, which, okay, we've had some discussion about that. Let's just say action sankamati steps over, crosses over, and the sankamanto is one who crosses over, one who steps over.
It's very difficult. Pali's hard enough, but going back to O-level grammar is even harder.
It can be a little bit of a struggle. So sankamanto, I suppose if you translate as a transmigrator, very often in English we make these action nouns. I mean, denoting the person by just adding er or or, a doer, a voter, an actor, a reader, traveller, killer, drinker. All of these are words. These are indicating the person who does that particular action, and these
Okay,
can all
thank you.
these
That's
will
useful.
also these can all be represented by the present participle in Sanskrit and Pali. Simon.
Does it have to refer to the actor? In the sense you could translate that one, that little fragment. There is no transmigrating to another body, so you kind of take it as a kind of a noun.
On this particular, I feel on very sure ground, Simon, in saying no, because the form sankamanto is specifically a form that indicates the doer of the verb. It never indicates just the name of the action itself. This anto form is always the doer, the person who is doing.
Would there be a form that is the action?
Yes, that would be something like sankama or sankamana.
Right.
Let's take an example. So you have the word from the root gum, to go. The present participle, again, gum slightly irregular because its present form has a ch instead of a m. You don't say gamati, you say gachati. So you have a gachan or a gachanto is a goer, a person who goes. Whereas you have other verbal nouns. Sometimes you can get 3 or 4 verbal nouns, like gati, gamana, gama. All of these are verbal nouns meaning the act of going. Whereas gachanto, I don't think I've ever encountered a case where it's anything other than an adjective or a noun referring to the person who is actually doing the thing. And it's pretty specific like that in Pali.
So when you see these present participles, it's probably safest always to translate it as the doer of the action.
Yes, I cannot offhand think of any exceptions to that rule. If they are, then they must be pretty rare. But that is the standard rule. So when it is, it just refers to the person who is doing it. And if you look at the first example, one who thus preaches. In English, we can talk about a preacher or one who preaches. Um, Slightly different meanings in English. If you talk about a preacher in English, um, you tend to think of a person whose regular job is preaching, whose regular vocation in life is preaching. He's a preacher, but one who preaches has a more general sense, whether it's he makes his living or his vocation in life or not. But in the Pali and Sanskrit present participles are used in both senses indiscriminately. Either he does it for a living, is what somebody is, or it's just describing the action that he's doing. Probably more commonly describing the action that he's doing.
He just happens to be doing it.
It just yeah, it probably more common. Yeah, he just happens to be doing it. Um, the the word for a doer, as in somebody who regularly does something. For example, let's take the word sunoti, to hear. You get the savaka is a hearer, one who is a disciple. Whereas if you're talking about somebody, if you're focusing on the fact that that person is doing the act of hearing or engaged in hearing, then you'd use the present participle. It's a noun, but a noun with a verbal force. Whereas a hearer, somebody who's a regular disciple of somebody, that's the savaka. There's a certain overlap between them. If the present participle will be sunanto, a hearer, and savaka, a hearer, a disciple. Savaka indicates more the entire character of that person, whereas if you see a sentence with the present participle sunanto, it would be concentrating more on the fact that listening or hearing is what he's doing in the sentence in question, rather than what he generally is. So see, the distinction isn't absolute. So these verbs ending in the words, sorry, nouns ending in aka tends to mean the description of the professional, the type of person that he is, what he does, and the present participial ending more focuses on the fact that that is the action that he is performing at the time. You'll focus on the action that he's doing. The distinction isn't absolute, but broadly that is right.
Hence the monastic names like Karuniko and Gavesako is the ka that shows that that's their kind of habitual character, so to speak.
Exactly so, yes. So that's more of the it's more of a noun. That's what the person is his characteristic, as opposed to focusing on what he's doing at the time. So it can be used as a noun and as an adjective equally. I mean, most adjectives in Sanskrit and Pali can be used as nouns. It's a bit like Latin and Greek. We do it in English as well, to a lesser extent. But we tend to do that in the plural only. We can talk about a person being living or dead. We can also talk about living persons and dead persons. But when we talk about the living and the dead, we tend to that meaning has a plural meaning. So the dead, the living, and the dead, everyone alive and everyone who is dead. So we don't use it in that sense in the singular in English, whereas in Sanskrit and Pali you do.
What an adjective derived from a noun.
Yes, or an adjective used as a noun, and this participial the participles here. if you asked a Sanskrit grammarian, he'd probably is that an adjective or a noun? And his answer would be, well, it's primarily an adjective, but it's an adjective that can be used as a noun like almost any other adjective can. It's common in Latin as well, and in Spanish and Italian also. You can just, les morts, les vivants, los muertos.
It's just a nominal,
I'm sorry?
just a nominal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a nominal. Yes, a nominal. When you talk about a nominal, normally that's used in the sense of in the grammatical declension. So that you have the most common not endings for nominals are the is the ending. But yes, I mean, I think yes, you could extend the meaning of it to say that, Simon. I agree with you.
And presumably also nouns and adjectives, okay, plurals, but also kind of general things like, when you say that the living, you can also say gold and silver. There's the stuff, and then the quality of that stuff.
Yes, you could. Yeah. Without defining any particular thing, you'll just talk about that substance generally.
But it's also an adjective. You can have like a bar of gold, or you can have a gold bar, so to speak, as an adjective.
Yeah. I, yes, I think gold is one of those words that in English you can use as an adjective or a noun. You can have a specific adjective, golden.
Mm.
Um, but in Manchester, we have a room that we call the Gold Room, simply because the colour rather than the Golden Room, but there it's distinctly used as an adjective. Um, yeah, I mean, in English, you get these boundaries. These boundaries are slightly blurred. Um, but here, back to the participles, they're basically adjectives, which, like virtually any adjective, can be used as a noun. Um,
What's odd about this is that in this idea of using it as the active verbal noun, is that in Lily de Silva, she only ever uses it the other way round. It's only ever used adjectivally.
is that right?
Yeah, because it's kind of, I've seen this before, but it's caused problems for me, and that's because I'm pretty sure I mean, I haven't got a copy of the book, but if you look at I've only got the glossary from the back.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that her account of um, present participles is purely adjectival. It's the going dog, or the
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Um, I'm not quite sure if we can say that she's actually wrong there, but she's probably slightly over simplifying. But I think one way around the problem, which I hadn't actually spotted, if you can find the part in Lily de Silva where this occurs, I'd be grateful if you could point it out to me so I can mention it to the group in another class. You overcome the problem by Lily de Silva making it very simple. It says that the present participle, or I can imagine her saying, I've seen the bit that you mentioned, you can correctly say that the present participle is an adjective that describes the person who is doing an act. The barking dog, the talking parrot, the singing bird, and so on, the boiling kettle. Okay, so far so good. But then point number two is that Sanskrit and Pali, same as Latin, will allow you to use virtually any adjective as a noun. And they aren't different in declension, for example, and nouns and adjectives would decline in exactly the same way, mostly. Um, unlike Russian, of course, where there's an entire separate set of declensional endings for adjectives. So if you can look at what Lily de Silva says and says, yes, okay, so far so good, but then apply the other rule, is that these adjectives can also be used as nouns. And then I think that is a way of overcoming the problem. But Simon, if you can find and point out to me where that occurs in Lily de Silva, I would be very, very grateful to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a copy, but just something that, having gone through that, probably with you, the stuff about it being nouns, I mean, I can see where it would make sense to do that, but it's never been explained to me. Where else would I get it from?
Okay, right, yeah. No, I certainly take your point. Anyway, we can resume this after I've seen what Lily de Silva actually says.
It's also the case in Warder. I can't think, Warder would have gone into it in any detail.
No, I didn't. I'll see if I can find what Warder says. I mean, I would say it's primarily used as an adjective. But you can't escape from the general rule that adjectives are also allowed to function as nouns. And if you look now at the next item on page 37, so another use of the present participle is to modify a noun. And Gehr and Karunatilaka put it the other way around. I think most people would start off saying it's an adjective that then can be used as a noun. They start off here virtually saying that the primary use is as a noun. If that's what they seem to be saying, that's not quite right. It's really equally adjective and noun, because it started life as an adjective, and like any adjective, can be used as a noun. So it says another use of the present participle is to modify a noun. Well, that just means an adjective modifying a noun. Actually, it's not modifying it. That's the wrong word. It should be qualifying a noun in strict grammar. Like the English ing, the part of the running man, or the man who is running away. So it's slightly different there because the present participial form is used as in our continuous present in English. It's slightly different. In this sense, it takes endings that agree with the noun. So, I see the Buddha going. So Buddha, I see the Buddha is Buddham Passami. Okay. Now, I see the Buddha going, Buddham Gacchantam Passami. That's the participle as an adjective describing what the Buddha is doing. I see the going Buddha. I see the Buddha going. So you can talk about a singing bird with pure adjective, or I can hear the bird singing, which is more of a verbal form. But if you can say I can hear the bird singing, you would use that adjective, that present participle adjective in Sanskrit and Pali, exactly as you would in Latin. And also has the meaning of while you're doing something. As in the next example, is Dhamman desento tathagato evameva vatati. So Dhamman desento means the Buddha who is preaching, or while preaching, while teaching the Dhamma. The Buddha teaching the Dhamma says thus. Is that in English, does that have the force of a pure verb, or does it have the force of an adjective? Sadly, in English, because our ending ing has come to have a lot of different grammatical functions, unlike in Sanskrit and Pali and Latin, where it's not so. But when you talk about I saw somebody doing something, use the present participle, and while doing something, I did so and so. Again, the present participle can mean while doing it. And of course it means just a pure adjective, as in the idea of a singing bird.
James, if it says while doing something, what more does the locative and genitive absolute add to that?
Okay. The locative absolute is okay. Let's look at Sanskrit first rather than Pali. Let's look at Sanskrit and Fene Latin as well. You have the locative absolute, and has exactly the same use as the ablative absolute in Latin. Strictly speaking, the locative absolute, like the Latin ablative absolute, is used where the two verbs are done by different people. So, in Latin, if you said, I whistle while I work, it's ego laborans, working, sibillo, whistle. And ego, I, and the laborans would be in the nominative, because it's the same person who is working and who's doing the whistling. Now, so you can't use the ablative absolute there. But instead of saying, if you want to say, instead of I whistle while I work, you want to say, he whistles while I work. Now you've got two different people. He's doing the whistling, I'm doing the working. That's where the ablative absolute would be used in Latin. So, me laborante, me working, ablative absolute, me laborante sibillat. He whistles while I work. And that same rule applies in Sanskrit. If it's the same person doing both acts, you use the participle in the same case as the person. If it's two different people, then you have the locative absolute in Sanskrit, just as the ablative absolute in Latin, two different people doing them. That rule is sometimes broken in Pali, which wouldn't be in Sanskrit. In Pali, sometimes you do see the locative absolute, even when it's the same person doing the act. It's a Sanskrit speaker would regard that as a bit of a solecism, a bit of a colloquialism that wouldn't be allowed in pure Sanskrit. So the answer is Pali could have both.
Significantly, the example that's nearly always given for the locative absolute, it's when it's somebody like Ratapala who wants the going forth, and it's while my parents were weeping, I shaved off my hair and beard. So it's
okay, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's virtually the prime example. Now, in Sanskrit, and the same applies in Pali, instead of a locative absolute, you can have what's known as the genitive absolute. The genitive absolute, which just doesn't exist in Latin, it has the same overall meaning as the locative absolute, but it has the idea of a bit of kind of something incongruous, almost as if you're complaining, or you wouldn't normally expect a dutiful son to be shaving off his hair and going forth while his parents were weeping. So you can use the locative absolute there. And for example, Nero fiddled while Rome burnt. What a shocking thing to do. Rome is on fire and there's Nero playing his fiddle. So to indicate the incongruity or shock or unexpectedness, you could use the genitive absolute in Sanskrit.
Despite.
Despite, yeah. So the Nero fiddled while Rome burnt would be. Latin doesn't have that. It would just be. It would just be. Roma ardente and whatever the Latin for fiddle is, I don't know. So Latin would only be allowed, only have the locative absolute. But so back to your first question, the answer is this locative absolute when it's the same person doing both acts, not allowed in Sanskrit, not allowed in Latin, has come to be allowed in Pali. And I'm not sure there's any real distinction. I'm not sure I've noticed any real distinction between them. I'm using the participle in the same case as the noun, and the participle in the locative form. And just at the end of the section 6 now, looking just under halfway down page 37. Note that the participle may take the objects, adverbs, etc., with which it can occur in a full sentence. So, in other words, the participle, I think that was the original meaning of the word participle. It partakes of the nature both of a noun/adjective and of a verb. So it's a word that describes the person who's doing something, but it can also take a noun as if it's a full verb. So if you look back to the sentence, Dhammande sento is exactly halfway down page 37. Dhammande sento, while preaching the Dhamma, or the Buddha who is preaching the Dhamma, Tathagato evameva vadati. So here the Dhammam is the direct object of desento, while preaching or while teaching the Dhamma. So you see that word here functioning as an adjective describing what the Tathagata is doing, and equally it has the force of a verb in that to the extent that it can take a direct object. And as it says here, it can take an adverb. So it can anything that a verb can do, a participle can do as well, in the sense of modifying it or it taking an object. What does it say down here? The participle may take objects, adverbs, etc., which can occur in a full sentence, and as the modifying expression with the participle may precede or follow the noun modified. Yeah. Basically, it's just saying that this participle is describing the action of the noun can come before it or after it, which is fairly regular in Sanskrit and Pali anyway. I mean, typically an adjective will come before the noun, but the word order isn't rigid. So this takes us to 9:15, so we can wind up there. So before we wind up for the night, were there any particular queries arising out of this? Did you enjoy the Latin bit, Fanny? I do sometimes say it's not very kind towards the Roman Catholic Church, but the only advantage that I retain out of having been brought up as a Roman Catholic
We had a very strict Latin teacher at school, Presbyterian, very strict, and she really, I was terrified of her, but she was lovely, and she really dinned the Latin into us, so I've never dared to forget any of it. And it's with the Greek, with the Sanskrit, and with the Pali, because a lot of it connects together.
It does indeed, yeah. I mean, there are so many deep connections between Latin, Greek, and Sanskrit and Pali. Yeah.
It's been very interesting. Thank you.
So you were terrified of her, you say. I was rather like that with some of my priestly Latin teachers at school.
Bone was tall. She was she could quell a riot with a look. That's what.
Yeah.
I met her at one of the local department stores, and I was going in, and she was coming out. And I was about 15, and she said, called me by name and said hello, and I realized, gosh, she exists outside school.
Well, yes, I know. It's very funny like that, seeing your teachers outside school. I remember I saw one teacher when I was, I must have been about,
You became,
eight or something. Saw a teacher, just on the railway station platform. How weird, he belongs in school, he exists in school. So
then
I exactly take your point, seeing her walking out of a shop.
after I left schools, she and Miss Spears, the French teacher, I mean, she spoke French with a Kelvin side accent, but um, they became friends. They were friends of Mum's, and they were friends of mine too. And I really, really owe a lot to Miss Bone. I really do.
Okay, some Latin teachers are quite nice. We just have had different experiences in life.
There's Timeo Danos et, sorry, we're overshooting. Timeo Danos et dona ferenti. So I fear the Greeks.
Hmm.
Oh, here we are with a participle bringing,
Yes.
and the and, that et, meant all sorts of things, even when, although, and that's why I first learned that the et and the kai and the cha, the kai in Greek and the cha, so they can mean all
That's
sorts.
right, because the Greek kai and the Latin and the Sanskrit and Pali cha, and also the alternative ending in Latin of
Yeah,
putting que at the end of a word
right.
is directly cognate with the Sanskrit
They can mean,
senatus populusque Romani.
and they don't have to mean and, they can mean if, but, although,
It can bit like the Sanskrit and Pali cha. The meaning can vary, as we saw in the reading that we were doing in the
15-year
in the first half.
that
Mm.
was frightening, and I thought, oh, what's
Yes,
this language?
yes, it's just wonderful to see these strands permeating from one language to the other, and
Yeah,
many surviving into our modern English.
yeah,
Just as we were discussing earlier, the swada,
and
hedos, and the English sweet, they all stem back to the original very basic thing, nice to eat, suada, hedos, sweet.
enjoy what you say.
Okay, great. So we can wind up with the blessing then. That's all right with you. So Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba buddhanu bhavena sada suthi bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba dhammanu bhavena sada suthi bhavantu te Bhavatu sabba mangalang rakhantu sabba devata sabba sanghano bhavena sada sutti bhavantu te. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being with me. See you soon then. Thanks.
And
Bye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.